You need to,
Oh.
doesn't
Oh, yeah.
you have your change.
Yes. I will have
Really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I thought about it, but I wasn't really craving ice cream.
I'm just like in there before ready.
Like we do some blenders. It's your blenders?
No. I found it. I remember it yesterday.
That's definitely not the word. I don't know, big business.
Oh,
So I decided to wear it tomorrow. Whenever I reach watch my hair, I
I
do
wore it for Monday after school meeting. Then put my little anklet with the goals.
I'll probably be here.
Carter, do you like green apples?
What?
You like green apples?
I guess.
I don't like red apples. I thought you asked me about apples. I would do. I don't like red apples.
Oh,
Both.
really? Why not?
I like all
They're not that very nice.
yellow apples, red apples.
See, I think green apples are too.
I was talking to
They
Katie.
have too much flavor in them.
Really?
Yeah.
I like the cinnamon flavor.
I'm talking to you.
I got some better than I tried. That were almost better.
Dang it. I don't want you to be happy now. You know what? I don't want you to be happy. Because we're healthy.
I have apples with peanut butter.
You eat apple every time.
An apple, they
I guess.
get there's way.
It's not true.
Hey, it's people brown.
What?
Thanks for bringing those.
I'm just saying. What? Inheritance. I'll do that.
We'll get started now. Today we have Wanda Johnson Taylor. She's the director of LSAM, which is a national program funded by NSF. It's been around for 20 years, 20 years. Basically has a mission of getting students on a path to research and sciences and so on. So she's going to talk about grad school. I'm sure most of you are going to go to grad school, I'm assuming. So maybe it's be a window into that, get started.
Okay, great. Thank you. As Dr. Rowan says, my name is Wanda Johnson Taylor. I am the interim director of a program at campus called North Carolina Roosevelt Alliance for Primary Transportation, which most folks call LSAN. And the program is funded by the National Science Foundation, and really it is about equipping students at the undergraduate level pretty early on to be prepared to apply to and be competitive for graduate school. The National Science Foundation really has a mandate to increase the number of students, especially those for underrepresented populations, whether they be racial or disability or gender, to make sure that that workforce is broad and diverse. So that's some of the work that I do on this campus. Dr. Ram asked me today to talk a little bit about the graduate school application process. And so what we're going to do is a very broad overview. And hopefully by the end of the time we have together, we'll provide a few insights into the graduate school application process. Looking at, this is sort of our agenda, why graduate school, selecting a program, the application timeline, funding, and then hopefully we'll have some questions, and I think we will for time for questions and discussions, because this isn't a big presentation. But before we get started, I'd like to get to know you guys a little bit. So what I'd like for each of you, So what I would like for each of you to do, tell me your name, hometown, your university, major, year, freshman, whatever. In 10 years, I will be. You can answer that any way you want to. I will be grown. I don't know what it might be. If I could have any superpower, it would be blank because. So why?
Oh, okay. So my name is Samantha Rahim. I'm from Rayford, North Carolina, which is beside Fayetteville. I go to Winston-Salem State University, majoring in IT. I'll be a senior next year. In 10 years, I'll probably be married, hopefully with a kid and, stable job, all that good stuff. So if I could have any superpower, I would love to be able to just become invisible.
Oh.
Aside from the fact that I like being anonymous, I think it's really cool. Be able to just walk into a room and just do stuff without knowing that they're doing it.
In all fairness, I probably should go first because I shouldn't ask you to do something I'm not doing first. So my name is Wanda Johnson Taylor. I'm originally from Richmond, Virginia. I got my undergraduate degree at a small liberal arts college in New England called Connecticut College. I got my master's here at A&T. I won't tell you what years. In 10 years, I hope I will be still doing this kind of work because I love it. If I could have any superpower, it would be the ability to stop time. And the reason why is there's some moments I would want to last forever, or to control time. There's some moments I would want to last forever, and there's some moments I would really want to rush through. So.
My name is Walker Cherry. I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm a junior computer science major at Norfolk State University. In 10 years old, I'll be 30. If I had any superpower, I guess it would be to fly. I'd rather be able to just go wherever.
My name is Carter. I'm from Tyler, Texas. I go to SMU. Majoring in computer science and applied math. I'm a junior, and in 10 years, I will be happy with what I'm doing. And if I could have any superpower, I think I'd like to read minds.
A little intrusive.
Because I don't know, it's useful. I don't have a specific reason.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's useful. It will be useful. Okay, I'll accept that. That's fine.
My name's Kennedy Garrett from Atlanta, Georgia, from Savannah State University, electrical engineer major. I'll be a sophomore in the fall. In 10 years, I'll be debt free. And I know it's good. I'll be debt free and financially stable. And if I could have any superpower, it would be to shapeshift because that's cool.
My name is Centriana Patterson. I'm from Hattiesburg, Mississippi. I go to Jackson State University in Jackson, Mississippi. I'm a computer engineer major, and I'll be a junior fall. In 2 years, I'll be a financially stable software engineer. Hopefully, from the side, I'll be modeling if I don't get any bigger. So I'm already got there. And if I could have any superpower, it would be to read minds as well, because some people it's hard to figure out. So it'd be best to know what's on their mind, and then you can go from there and see oh, okay, I see where we stand. I see where this is going. Okay.
Hey, my name is Adasia Nelson. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. I go to Jacksonville State University. It's in Jacksonville, Alabama. I'm going to be a junior in the fall, and my major is computer science. In 10 years, I'll be alive. And if I can have any superpower, it would be mind control, because I feel like with that one you can cheat, so you can be like, okay, you see me flying right now, you're not.
Okay. So you don't necessarily be able to fly. You can convince people that they see you flying.
Yeah.
Okay.
My name is Haley Muller. I'm originally from Windy River, Florida, but live in Dallas, Texas now. I go to Mississippi College. I'll be a senior this year, graduating in December, studying kinesiology. And in 10 years, I will be designing running shoes and happily married and traveling a lot. And
You do that.
what?
I said in hiking.
And and if I could have any superpower, it would be to fly because you can get to anywhere you want to go super quick.
My name is Cameron Evangelista. I'm from a small town just outside of Kansas City, but I currently live in Cary, North Carolina. I go to North Carolina State University, and I'm an applied math and statistics major, and I'll be a senior in the fall. In 10 years, I will be hopefully using what I've been learning in college. And if I could have any superpower, it would be to see into the future, so I could go to Vegas and just.
Well, didn't think you were going there, but okay.
My name is Jared Boggs. I was born in Lexington, Kentucky, but I live in Greenville, South Carolina. I go to the University of Kentucky. I will be a sophomore in the fall, studying mechanical engineering. In 10 years, I will be married and enjoying my career, whatever that turns out to be. And if I could have any superpower, it would be to fly, just because I love traveling and save a lot of money on like flights and gas and all that stuff. And it's just it's fun. Like flight's a cool thing. So.
My name is Eric Fagan. I'm from Cary, North Carolina. I go to NC State University. I'm a mechanical engineering and math major, rising sophomore. In 10 years, I will be hopefully married with kids and traveling a lot and working in the defense field. And if I could have any superpower, it would probably be being able to speak any language, because I like traveling a lot. So if I could just talk to any single person, like any language would be pretty cool.
Greetings, my name is Emmanuel Charles Terrell. I am from Rocky Mount, North Carolina. I go to Livingstone College, Computer Information Systems at Livingstone College in Salisbury, North Carolina. I am a rising junior. In 2 years, I will be living my best life. And if I could have any superpower, it would be super speed, because I'll save on gas.
Okay.
Super speed.
So, that's interesting.
I mean, he's gonna be the Flash.
It's always interesting to hear what people's superpowers might, what they would like to have, why, whether it's for personal gain or, whether it's to give a financial edge and situation in terms of gambling. So Dr. Ram indicated what we're going to talk about today is graduate school. And one of the things that when he said that he had the sense that most of you were going to be going to graduate school, my question is why graduate school? So those of you who are thinking about graduate school, why are you thinking about graduate school?
The pay increase.
Pay increase.
More knowledge.
More knowledge, okay.
It gives me an extra year to figure out what I want to do.
Okay.
Better access to jobs.
Okay.
In my current field, almost everybody needs a graduate degree to stand out.
Yeah, it's interesting. Anybody else want to share? So if you're thinking about graduate school, why? And let me flip it. Are there some of you who've already decided you don't think you'll be going to graduate school right away? Okay. Why not?
That's just where I'm leaning right now.
Okay. No, that's fine.
Yeah.
Some folks are leaning towards graduate school and not going.
Yeah.
So.
Just because I'd just like to join the workforce like as soon as possible. Like, I mean, school's fun and it's cool, like learning and stuff, but
you're ready to get the degree.
Making money
get
is
the degree, get a job.
Yeah.
So it's people have lots of different reasons for why they want to go into graduate school. And one of the things that I've heard was about sort of career opportunities and pay increase, and that's real. There's also some folks who feel that a graduate degree now is your baseline degree, especially in the STEM field. So if where a bachelor's degree was pretty much, setting you apart, now it's the graduate degree that sets you apart. So for some people, that's the way to think about it. And it's usually related to career opportunities and how they perceive themselves being more competitive in the job market. So there's lots of reasons. There's passion, there's flexibility, usually that comes, especially if you're talking about a PhD. Some people do it for altruistic reasons. They want to go to graduate school because they want to solve some big problem. There's a research problem that they really want to look at, they want to solve, they want to address cancer, or they want to build stronger buildings, whatever it might be. But one of the things that I hear often, so I'm not surprised at this, but I thought it would be interesting to sort of look at what the numbers, and these are old numbers, hopefully it'll come up. So the difference between your annual wages, can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay. So it just gives you a sense. If the money is an incentive, it can make a difference in terms of baseline at a bachelor's and baseline at an advanced degree. Now, we're not all driven by money, but it is a factor that's worth continuing. So I just wanted you to see what those numbers sort of look like.
How old are those numbers?
Those are 15, so those are old numbers. Yeah. So deciding what you want to do. So those of you who are thinking about graduate school, are you thinking master's or PhD?
Masters.
Okay, you said PhD?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so let's hear from the lone PhD first. Why you thinking PhD?
Because that feeds into why I want to go to grad school, which is more just because I love learning, and because I love doing what I'm doing. I want to do that for as long as possible.
Okay. And those of you who say master's is fine for me, why?
Because graduate school is expensive enough. It's expensive enough. The tuition is expensive, and then it's like who will pay for like your expenses and stuff like that.
Doing the extra time for the masters, yes, enough for me. Cause I'll be like, what, 24 maybe?
Oh, Lord.
24, depending on the masters. You know, I'm getting old.
It'll be almost a quarter of a century. What are we gonna do?
Time is running out. So hopefully I'll be able to make, stable pay with the masters, If all this fails, I guess I'll go to a PhD, but I don't want to.
Okay.
I want to work. I still want to do industry and like R&D with defense. I don't really want to go super deep into straight engineering. I want to have like applicable stuff, not really academia. So for me, master's is fine for that.
And that's usually what differentiates folks that decide to do a master's and a PhD. One is the intensity of a PhD program. And so unless you're committed to that kind of intensity, unless that passion for research and discovery and sometimes frustration is part of the way you're built, then a PhD program can be very frustrating to students who don't have that passion. One of the things to think about, and those of you who are thinking about, have you thought about where you might want to do your graduate degree? Okay.
Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech?
Same, Georgia Tech.
University of Northern Colorado.
Okay.
University of Washington.
Washington.
UT possibly.
Okay. Vermont. Okay. So one of the things I always tell students about is when you're looking at programming, when you're looking at the difference between looking at a graduate program and an undergraduate program is that you're not looking at the university. Okay, you're looking at the program and you're looking at what you're desiring to get out of it. So there are a lot of students who, I use this example all the time. I had a student a couple of years ago who had her heart set on going to Georgia Tech. And so she applied and she got accepted and she went down for a visit and it didn't fit. It wasn't the place that she felt was the place for her. And so it's really important that when you're looking at a school, you want to look at the school's reputation, certainly, and its output in terms of what they do in terms of graduating students in graduate programs. But you also want to look at the particular field, and you want, especially if you're looking at a PhD and you're looking at doing even research at the master's level, is there something here that fits what I'm trying to do? Unlike undergraduate, you look for a strong engineering program, a strong math program. You're pretty much going to get what you need from a program at the school. The other thing that folks talked about is funding. Graduate school can be expensive. There are options out there to fund it. We'll talk a little bit about that. You also want to think about time to degree. How much time do you want to put into this? There are some folks who will decide to do a master's degree, like you said, like someone said, because 2 years is about all I want to put into this. I'm not ready to commit an additional 3 or 4 to make it 5 or 7 years. So the thing about it is just being true to yourself, knowing what you're looking for, and then sort of beginning this journey. So selecting a graduate program, and this is some of what we talked about, don't go on reputation alone. Do not. No matter how much a friend that you know is there and is having the time of their life, is in a great lab, and doing great research, that doesn't mean it's going to be a fit for you. So it really is important to really figure out what program you're going to go to. And I recommend that students always try to go to campus visitations. And the great thing that's going on now, because there's so much interest in students doing graduate school by most universities, there are all kinds of programs across the country. I just want to show you guys a few of them. So let's just pick one. Let's see, hope it's an active one. And these programs are great because they really do, more and more universities are looking at bringing students who are interested, especially in their sophomore, junior year, on campus and getting them excited about their programs. So they'll offer programs to bring you in. Many of them will pay for travel and will allow you opportunities to visit labs, to talk to graduate students. The thing about these is they're usually very early in the year in terms of when the deadline is. So most of these programs, because they happen early fall, their deadlines are usually the spring of the year before. So you would apply for them a little early. And then you have individual programs like this one. And then you have programs like a really great one, I think, my own personal opinion, is, it's not on this one. Oh, well, it may be on. It's Purdue. Have any of you heard about the Purdue program? Or okay, so I think it's on here. Purdue does this huge program that's not just focused on Purdue. So there are several universities that come in and they do an expo. It's called the Big Ten Plus Graduate Expo. So they bring Big Ten universities to Purdue's campus, and their recruiters, they bring in students from all across the country to recruit. So it's a great opportunity to get to see a lot of programs in one space. So you're not going back and forth. And when you decide where you really want to narrow down to, you can sort of look at some of those programs more specifically. But I would encourage you, especially those of you who are in the not going into your senior year, those of you who are going to your senior year, I'm sure you've made these decisions already, to try to look at some of these campus visits. It really is important to get to talk to folks, to ask the questions that you want asked, and to sort of be in that space. While the Purdue program doesn't allow you to be in that space, it does allow you to see a lot of different programs at the same time. So that's sort of the advantage on that. So, application process. I think that for me, the biggest thing about the biggest difference in terms of the application process for undergraduate and graduate is that there's an expectation that you're even more focused. So that the application itself is pretty much the same. They're going to ask the demographic information, those kinds of things. But when you talk about when you're looking at your personal statement, it's really, 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 really important that you present yourself in such a way that the selection committee is going to remember you. And it's not just about what you've accomplished, although that's important. It's about how you tell the story. And what I often find when I have students who will ask me to look at their essays, especially engineering students, and this is not just because I'm housed in this building, so it's most likely that I see engineering students. Oftentimes, it's a factual statement as opposed to a personal statement. You understand what I mean in terms of that? So oftentimes they'll tell me the essay will say, the personal statement will say what they've done, what they've accomplished, but it doesn't really give a sense of who you are. And so what you want to make sure that your personal statement is such that the person who is reading it, when they put it down and they go on to the next essay, they'll remember you. And oftentimes essays that I read or personal statements that I read are such that even for applications to our program are such that when I put them down, there's nothing memorable there. Now that doesn't mean they're not strong applicants. It doesn't mean that they didn't have a good story to tell. It means that perhaps they didn't tell it in the way that's going to allow you to remember it. And certainly if you're looking at competitive schools, you want them to have an aha moment when they read your application. You want them to see how you fit in their program, what you're going to add, not only why you want to be there because of what you're going to gain. And so it's not necessarily a list of what you've accomplished, but it's your accomplishments aligned with the program that you're going into and how it's prepared you for that. And oftentimes students will forget to make those connections and assume that it's obvious to the selection committee, and it really is not. So don't embellish, don't tell a story that's not really you, but certainly tell a story that really reflects you. A lot of times I had a student, not a student, well, she applied for the Graduate Research Fellowship Program. And she happened to be a young lady who had, African-American young lady, who had spent the first 12 years of her life doing competitive ice skating. And so she wove that story and the lessons learned through her essay. That's memorable. There's probably not gonna be a lot of African-American mechanical engineering applications that come through that weave that experience into their essay. So pick something that says something about you, and then I have students say, well, I don't have anything that big. It doesn't have to be something that makes you stand out 1 in a million, but really is the real you. Okay, does that make sense? Recommendations. What I tell students when they ask me for a recommendation is, one thing is, give me enough time. You guys know that. The other is, provide me with some information. So if you're gonna ask someone to write your recommendation, I'm assuming it's someone that you feel knows you really well, but they may not know you in the way that you want the story told. So if there are things that you want highlighted, make sure that they know it. If there are things about the program that has informed your decision to go there, make sure that they know it so they can reference it and they can sort of back up your story in their recommendation. So they can talk about you. Usually it's going to be a faculty member who you've done research with or who knows you really well academically. But you want that story, again, to be something that weaves a message across who you are to the committee. So don't think of these as separate pieces of paper. Think of them all coming together to paint a picture of who you are and what you bring and what you're desiring to gain from the experience. Okay, does that make sense? How many of you are already taking the GREs? How many of you are planning to take the GREs? How many of you are excited about taking the GREs? Okay, why not? You took the SATs, you've taken tests before. Why?
I hate standardized tests.
Hate the standardized test.
Can't.
Okay, hate tests. Okay.
No, just standardized tests.
Well, I mean, yeah, okay, standardized tests. Why?
I've always gotten the sense that they don't actually capture what they supposedly capture. Information about your academic potential. Right. And that was frustrating for a lot of years.
Okay. Others, why don't you? Is the consensus that it doesn't capture who you are? Okay. That's why the other parts of the application are so important. Especially now, if you're going into, there are some graduate programs that don't require GREs, but for the most part, you're going to take the GRE. And depending on the competitiveness of the school, there may be a point at which you fall off the table if your GRE scores aren't in a range. But for most schools and many departments, the GRE is not a cutoff because most informed folks know, as you just said, that the GRE is just one piece of the puzzle. It doesn't speak to passion. It doesn't speak to how you respond when you get knocked down and have to get back up and keep doing the research. So those kinds of things, the GRE score is not going to capture. And selection committees are pretty aware of that. Doesn't mean they take it off the table. It's still going to be a requirement at most schools. So what I encourage you all to do is just plan to take it at least twice. Just because unless you knock it out of the ballpark the first try, then you don't have to. But if you take it early enough so that when you submit your application, you have 2 sets of scores, then you have something to work with. If you wait until the last test before the application deadline, you take away some of your flexibility. The other thing that's usually required is a copy of your resume, and some schools will say resume or vita, but basically it's a document that says what you've done and how well you've done it. Again, think about the audience. This is not a work resume. So while there may be things that you have done on a particular job that work better and might work better in industry, think about who's going to be looking at it. Again, you're not going to invent stuff that isn't real, but you want to make sure that the audience that's reading, at the end of the day, you want the folks who read your essay, who look at your application packet, to remember you in a positive way. Tell a story and make it real, make it live on the pages. So this is timeline sort of for your senior year. I would say there are several of you that are entering in are juniors, rising juniors. Did I get that right? Okay. So you got a little bit more time, which is great because you're ahead of this timeline. I think last year's group had a more diverse population. So the summer prior, draft your personal statement. And the reason is that what it allows you to do is it allows you to put it down and come back to it later, and you can read it with fresh eyes. Have you ever had to produce a paper for a class and you did it really quickly, and you looked at it maybe a month after and it's like, dang, that could have been so much better. Not that it wasn't good, but when you look at it again, you're like, whoa, this could have been better. And so you want to have that same experience with your personal statement. It's not to say your first draft is going to be awful, but your second draft is going to be better. It always is. And I would also encourage you to have folks who know you read it. And then I would ask someone who maybe doesn't know you as well to read it and see if they know you having read it and not knowing you. Does that make sense? It's easy to ask someone who knows you because they'll look for you in it. But if someone doesn't know you and that's the only you they know, then what comes through is what the committee is probably going to see. Research and identify fellowships and scholarships. Graduate school can be expensive, and it's that number is one of the things that keeps some students from applying to graduate school. I would say don't let that be a hindrance at the application stage. If you apply and there's no funding available for some reason, which is unlikely, but if you apply and you get somewhere and there's no funding, then you make that decision. But don't not apply because you think you won't get the funding. You just don't know what those opportunities might actually look like. And we talked about the GRE. Some students really take here, and I'm sure all over the place, take a GRE prep course. I don't know that the GRE prep course has a huge impact on increasing your scores, but it does help you to get comfortable with the test. And that's important, that you sort of know what you're looking for and understand how the test is developed. We talked a little bit about this. So in September, as I said, go to your faculty advisor, whoever faculty member, research advisor that you want to provide a recommendation, give them with the information. Give them a timeline. It is not unusual to request a recommendation, at least not here, maybe at other schools, to request a recommendation and it somehow gets to the bottom of the pile. So if you give that person a timeline that gives them a window so that you have time to come back to them and say, did you finish it yet? And they still got a week to do it. It's easier than if that timeline is truncated and they really don't have enough time if they get caught up in something else. So the point here is really to manage this process. It is on you to manage it from beginning to end. We talked about obtaining. Let me see if I can do this. Is this working? So I'll have to keep going back and forth. Yeah. Retake the GRE if you need it in the fall. Revise your personal statement. This is really about just getting things done. Submit applications early. A lot of students will say, well, I have until February to apply. That may be the application deadline, but it's probably not the money deadline. And what you want is to be considered while there's still money on the table. So don't look at the posted deadline for last day to submit your application. Make sure that your application is complete and in early enough so that when they're making decisions about money, your application is part of that process. So that's why you want to submit your applications ideally in November. And then you spend the spring, looking at your decision letters, getting ready, visiting campuses so that you can track things, so you can narrow things down. Like I indicated, the young lady who got accepted to Tech, and when she went, she realized that wasn't the place for her. She also got accepted at Duke, which wasn't her first choice, but she went there and she loved the folks that she met in the lab, and that's where she is. So she's doing her PhD there. So once you receive it, you'll probably receive an invite to campus. Go and visit and make sure that it's not one of these kinds of visits that we talked about in the beginning, where it's sort of the let us show you everything about our university. It's really about the labs and the professors and the folks that you're going to be working with. Because especially if you're doing a research degree like a PhD, that's going to be your life. And so you want to be a place where you feel comfortable, feel supported. So funding for graduate school. So I just told you that. But what's the difference between an assistantship and a fellowship?
Assistantships are basically jobs,
Exactly.
whereas fellowships are grants.
Exactly. So, and that's why I said there's usually money for graduate school. Oftentimes that money is in the form of assistantship. So how many of you are at schools where you have graduate students teaching a class or teaching a lab? Those are assistantships. Those are graduate students who are being paid. That's how they're making money on those campuses. That's their form of aid. So you can be a teaching assistant, a research assistant, or at A&T, and I think a lot of campuses we have graduate assistants, and those graduate assistants are folks who work in offices, for example. They work in the admissions office, in the graduate school. And so there are opportunities, but they're really employment. The ideal, would you rather have to work for your money in the sense of an additional job, or have your money tied to what you're doing?
Tied to what you're doing.
Tied to what you're doing, okay. And that's what fellowships usually are. So fellowships in most schools have some kind of fellowship money. At A&T we have what we call the top of the fellowship money at A&T. It's a Chancellor's Fellowship, which is I think it's $32,000 a year plus tuition and fees. So there's fellowship money out there. There's fellowship money from places like the National Science Foundation. How many of you are aware of the National Research Fellowship Program? Okay, what do you know about it? Two of you sort of said yes, so tell us about what you know about the Graduate Research Fellowship Program.
Well, they give out money for you to do a research project, or they fund your project or whatever you're working on in grad school.
So remember I said the National Science Foundation is really, one of its mandates is to both broaden the pool of students who are going on to graduate degrees. One of the ways that they do that is through programs like the one that I indicated that I do, that's an undergraduate program. The other thing that they do is they have, it's fairly competitive. It's the National Graduate Research Fellowship. It is an annual fellowship that this year I think is at $32,000 a year. And then it includes room and board, and it's 3 or 4 years of funding. What's great about the GRFP is it's portable. So that means if you get the GRFP, you can take it wherever you're accepted. You know, A&T's fellowship is only good if you stay at A&T. Universities have fellowship money that is money that is for their campuses, but you can also look for portable funding, and that is funding that allows you to take the money where you get accepted. The advantage of that oftentimes is, and what's happened with the GRFP, is because funding graduate students is happens at the institutional level, and oftentimes in the department and lab level, folks are two things. There's not a whole lot of money, and folks are very particular about their money. And so what the Graduate Research Fellowship allows you to do is go to a particular researcher and say, and this young lady who went to Duke happened to get the Graduate Research Fellowship, to go to a researcher and say, I am really passionate about working in your lab, and I'm coming with my own money. Well, hey, I think I can find a space for you. And so those are important things to look at. The other is the GEM Fellowship. Have folks heard of the GEM Fellowship? Okay. So let's see if we can click on both of them. Let's do the GRFP. And what I'll do, if you'd like, I can send Dr. Ram these slides, and you guys will have all these links, if that would be helpful for you. So the GRFP, it says, supports outstanding graduate study in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics who are pursuing research master's or doctoral degrees in the United States. Sounds like all of you could fit into that category. So certainly worth looking at. The application deadline, it's a pretty intense process. You have to do a research statement, you have to do a personal statement. most campuses, on our campus, and I'll ask if you know this, do you have on your campuses, on your home campus, someone who helps students with writing fellowship applications? Okay. Okay, so what you would do is, this is one of those that you definitely want to have that person start with you early in the process to get your packet together, because this is a very competitive process. So you want everything in line, in place, on time. And the GEM fellowship, let's see if we can get that. The GEM is slightly different because the GEM fellowship is tied to employment. So the GEM fellowship, so they have a PhD in engineering fellowship, a PhD in science fellowship, and with the GEM fellowships comes you are partnered with a GEM employer, who are members of the GEM Alliance. They also, GEM has every year, have any of you heard of or attended a GEM Grad Lab? Okay, it'll be on the link that I send you guys. GEM every year has grad labs across the country, and they are usually a 1 day, sometimes a 1.5 day intensive on applying to graduate school, finding the application process, all of that information. So what I want, hopefully you take away with from today is that there's lots of resources out there to help you prepare and be competitive in your application process for graduate school. So these are resources that I think are, let's see if the GEM Grad Lab will come up. And then the 18 days are up yet.
So,
What'd you say?
the conference. I was supposed to go to that last year.
So let's see, these are, yeah, these are last year, so they haven't posted this year. But what you get a sense of is that the grad labs are happening, different universities across the country will host GEM Grad Labs. So there's probably one somewhere near you, and probably, we're getting into July, probably about next month they'll post where the locations will be for this coming year. It's a great opportunity again to get in front of people and to get some pointers on applying to graduate school. This website, this location is awesome in that it provides opportunity, it provides information on everything from K-12 to grad school in terms of programs, funding, and those kinds of things. Again, I'll send you all this because there's a lot of information here. You can sort by region, you can sort by major, you can sort by degree. But it's worth sort of getting acquainted with, and there will be some information I'm sure will be helpful for you. Yes?
So they talk about like STEM programs in elementary schools?
Right, so one of the things that what you'll find is there are a couple of things. So in the K-12, they will show you, for example, programs, summer camps, or other programs that are focused for students in K-12 and STEM. It's an awesome site. There's a lot of information here.
That's actually how I found
Is that how you found this? Yeah.
One of my friends.
Yeah, because we did post it here. Yeah, but it is a lot of students think of it as just undergrad because that's usually when they encounter it, but it really does go the whole spectrum. So yeah, so it's an awesome site. And like you found programs here, it's the same thing, K-12 programs across the country, so it's not, so you have a broad spectrum of what's available. Okay. That's it for me in terms of formal presentation. So any questions? I'm not an admissions person, so I'm not trying to recruit you to A&T. I just wanted you guys to have some sort of insights and some resources that you can walk away with that might be helpful for you as you start this path. But any questions or concerns or things you'd like me to address a little more specifically?
Out of curiosity, how much does having done an REU generally help with this process? Like
in terms of graduate school?
Yeah, getting accepted and getting like grants,
sure,
things like that.
So, and we didn't talk about, so when you're looking at graduate school, you're looking at a master's degree or a PhD. And I'm assuming if you're looking at a master's, and it's an assumption that most of you would be looking at more of a research-based master's. There are professional master's programs that are designed more to combine the science and the business side for folks who want to go into industry. If you're looking at sort of your traditional research-based master's program, then what you're going to be what folks are looking for is, are you prepared to engage in research at the graduate level? And so the best way to speak to that is having done it as an undergraduate. And to be perfectly honest, because there are more and more REUs out there now, there's almost an expectation that either on your campus or doing some kind of external research, that folks have engaged in research at the undergraduate level. And it also strengthens your application because, again, instead of talking about, I want to do research because I know it will blah, 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 you can talk about the research that you've done, what you've learned from it, what the challenges were, how you address them. And so you speak to the culture you're going into from having been there before. That's always a strength. And I tell students, when I talk to students about participating in the LSM program, because one of the things we do is try to engage students in research as early as their sophomore year. And what I tell students all the time is that even if you're not going into a research-based career, if you're not desiring to be in a lab for the rest of your life, the problem-solving skills, the team-building skills, all those skills you can sell that you've learned in research to industry. It's just a matter of how you package them. Anything else?
One of the pieces of advice that I've gotten from other people is to, you were mentioning like not just looking at the reputation of a school, but to look at the specific program. I've gotten the advice to even go more fine-grained and look for a specific advisor and a specific path that you want to work in.
Exactly.
Is that something you'd recommend?
Yes, that's when you're applying to graduate school, you are not applying, as it were, to the department. If you're applying to a PhD program, you're applying to a research initiative that is happening on that campus. And that's why oftentimes when students sort of delve down into what they want to do, that research may not be happening on the campus of the big university you thought it was happening. Like I said, the young lady that she's in aerospace, and the research that she really wanted to do is happening at Duke. Now that wasn't her ideal school, but when she went there, that lab was doing everything that she was excited about. She could have gone to Georgia Tech, but she would have been trying to fit something that didn't really work. And the other piece of it is, a researcher who is going to fund you is going to fund you to make a contribution to their research. They're not funding you to be sort of the best you can be in the global sense. They're funding you to be the best you can be to contribute to the research in that lab. And so, yes, that's accurate. That is, it's certainly at the PhD level, not as much so at the master's level. So if you're doing a master's, if you can sort of find a general lab that's sort of doing the kind of work that usually you can make that fit, but certainly at the PhD level, think about it. You're going to be doing this for at least 5 to 7 years. And his eyes glazed over. They're like, not me. Okay, any other questions? Okay. You guys want the slides? I send them to Dr. Ram. Okay, I'll send Dr. Ram and the actual links are there. Thank you. You got some extra time? And if you're around this summer and have a question that pops up, do you know where Dr. Ram's office is on the 6th floor? So when you come out of the elevator and make that left and sort of going into the wing where he is, I'm at the end of that hall, the second from the end. So just stop at my door's almost always open.
Oh, yeah.
I was walking.
So if you do the K through 12, it'll break it down. Programs to K through 12, high school students, student development. So it'll break it down for you. summer camps.
He's definitely about to start going to
You went like this.
them camps next year. Right now, he's just trying to master.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's important too. Hey, if he's good enough at that,
No, you just say I already went out to the ABC. Gonna be a good kid. He still wants to have some kind of background. If he injures himself, he's still gonna be smart. And he's still gonna have a job.
Make sure you spend most of the time on one sport, so you need good enough like college.
Yeah. You know about that.
go to college, get a solid degree, get it all paid for, go play professionally.
But I don't know.
One of them.